Started right at 7:00. Huh? 7:00. Thank you all for coming out on this cold night. I'm going to call the meeting to order right at 7 o'clock. If we could, before the Pledge of Allegiance, just have a quick moment of silence. I know tomorrow, I believe, is the day of mourning for President Carter. If we could all live to be 100, that would be amazing. But if we could all give half the service in our 90s that he did, I think we'd all be in a better place. So if we could rise for a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Ron, do you want to lead us again to end the pledge? Ron?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to do a quick roll call. I'll remind you that Gia, our clerk, is on phone, so anyone who's speaking, if you could please, including committee members, give your name so she can hear you clearly, that would be wonderful. I'll try to remember to switch my mic on and off better than I usually do. So Lori Hayes O'Brien, obviously here. Dawn Cantefio.
Here.
Ron Feligno. Dave Galla.
Here.
Richard Kroll.
Here.
Matthew Sather.
Here.
Kelly Malazzi. Here. Mike Buswell.
Here.
Tony Silber.
Here.
Christine Alaris is by telephone, just so you all know. Christine's not feeling well, but she's here via phone. And Dean Fabrizio is not here tonight. So I think that's that. We are going to move on to public comments. I am going to make a quick statement, if I can find it. I usually try to read this before public comments. I'm going to share it again tonight. Again, if we could try to keep it down to 2 to 3 minutes, if we can roll through, that would be wonderful. We'd really appreciate it. If someone has already said something that you would like to just say ditto or repeat, feel free. I'm going to please ask to stress this last sentence in the standards regarding public comment, which is that will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about town council members, committee members, nor against any person connected with the town of Trumbull or any other individual, firm, or corporation. Please be kind. I do want to add before public comments, because I know it was mentioned a number of times at the town council meeting about our last minute, so I'd like to do some clarification if I could. This was total human error. I'll take responsibility for not checking up on it. I'll also blame COVID because everyone involved in the chain of command of the minutes had COVID at one point at that time and the holidays. So may have been a violation. I apologize for that. It's my job to check to make sure they are there. They were in the town, the clerk's office, and on the film was on the website. But I also want to take that opportunity to give a shout out to our clerk, Gia, who never in all of the 7 years that I've been doing this, has made this mistake before, and to Patty, our webmaster. They are the most efficient people that we could ever ask for, and although I understand why people were concerned about it, I think it's a great opportunity to thank them for the work that they do. So anyone has public comments, please feel free to come forward.
Are you able to read for another neighbor that can't be here?
Of course.
It's very short.
That's great. Thank you.
I don't know her numeric. She spoke the other night. You can go ahead. Sorry.
We'll find it.
She was here the other night.
Yeah. Thank you.
White, 169. Sorry. Richard White, 169 Churchill Road. Briefly, I'd like to start by thanking the committee for posting the invoice in tonight's minutes that you'll be discussing. I think it's important that the committee members as well as the public have opportunities to see any and all supporting information. I'd also like to thank Cindy for forwarding me the new contract with QA&M from, I think you discussed it a few months ago. That's great, and we're still looking into the original from a year ago, and I appreciate those efforts. On the upcoming traffic study, Chairman Massaro was sort of hinting around at this about the flow of traffic being around the building. I think that opportunity in parking and in traffic helps with flow and keeps congestion and pinch points from looking at that. I'm by no means a parking lot traffic person. I'm more a highway traffic person. But I'm wondering if you couldn't ask the traffic engineer who's doing the traffic study to also review the parking in the driveway and the crosswalk. And I'd also ask that the traffic study, the second traffic study from Hardy Lane, which has some interesting insights as to pedestrian traffic and a crosswalk and the bus terminal, be shared with the engineer that's doing the traffic study for Grace Church. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Hello. Laurel Walsh, 5944 Main Street. I am speaking to express concerns about the latest design regarding access and egress. While this current design may meet minimum standards, prioritizing the safety of our community should be paramount. The current design could pose significant challenges for emergency vehicles in an emergency requiring immediate response. I foresee numerous situations where access issues could lead to chaotic and potentially life-threatening delays for first responders. To address this, I recommend reconsidering the inclusion of a second exit point from the rear of the property. For instance, the Board of Education building a few blocks away provides a good example of an alternative exit design that enhances safety and accessibility. We are often reminded of tragic events in the news, events we never imagined happening in our hometown. However, the best emergency outcomes occur when access is efficient and unobstructed. By striving for a plan that exceeds minimum code requirements, we can ensure our neighbors feel confident that their safety is a top priority. Thank you for considering this important matter. I look forward to discussing potential improvements to the design. I'd appreciate a response if you could tell me if the access roads comply with the NFPA standards and best practices. Thank you. I additionally have a statement from Brittany Jones.
She's also on Main Street, right?
Yep,
Yes.
she's 5976, I believe. She's the old Holly Library. As the neighbor directly to the north of the proposed building and front parking lot, the newest version of the proposal is expanded north and brings the roadway even closer to my property, which I am concerned about from a noise and light pollution perspective. I am more in favor of the previous plans shown that increase the northern buffer zone. In addition, in response to my question in the November Building Committee meeting, it was acknowledged that the property lines on the map rendering may not be accurate. It is extremely important for me to understand exactly where these property lines are and that the renderings be accurate so that I can accurately picture where the proposed roadway will fall and what the impact will be. I also look forward to discussing details of the appropriate planted/built buffers to ensure privacy and peace when the appropriate time comes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marlene Silverstone, 3 Cherry Blossom Lane. Although the Community Facilities Building Committee was formed to develop options for the senior and community center, it was supposed to be located in the right location. It doesn't belong at 5958 Main Street, the Grace Church property. The proposed community center, run by the Parks and Recreation after hours and weekends, is a nuisance to the surrounding residential communities. The noise and traffic congestion on and off site has no place in this community. There are no buffers that will alleviate the unwanted noise and activity that will come from community center activities. Although this site was used for a church, i.e. assembly, there was a mutual respect between the Episcopal Church and the residential communities. The church had limited hours of operation and low-key functions and made a good neighbor. While the parking lot has been reduced, there are still events that may bring 200-plus vehicles to the site with the honking horns, traffic congestions, etc. Also, I request an open discussion that allows the public to ask questions after the presentations and the committee asks their questions, and not be relied just on these public comments. Regarding the comment on the exit for emergencies, as long as whatever you looked at should not impact going through Long Hill Village or any private property. Thank you.
Sorry. That would have been funny. Sorry. Hi. Sherry Boyd, 16 Pinehurst Street, a 32-year resident of Trumbull. I would like to begin with 2 quotes from the August 5th, 2024 Town Council meeting when the Community Facilities Building Committee gave their updates. Quote, "Since the beginning, the components of the building have been that of a senior center, including a small gym, except for one small meeting room for community use. It's all senior center use." And my question regarding that is, when did that change? Also, from the same August 3rd, 2024 Town Council meeting. Quote, "The Director of Social Services oversees the senior center, and those offices will be included in the building," end quote. And my question to you is, has that changed? Okay, calm down. I wonder if beginning the process with traffic and environmental studies might save everyone lots of time and Trumbull lots of money. With the expected pollution from the demolishing existing buildings and digging 1+ story into the ledge, I ask committee members and the architects, if your parents lived in Long Hill Village, would you be going forward with this project? Many of the issues with using the Grace Church property are environmental. And last month, the Conservation Commission and the Building Committee met at the same time, preventing citizens from attending both and preventing the Conservation Commission members from attending the Building Committee meeting. Okay. I did a little bit of research on the architect's website having to do with other community centers that they've designed and built. The 3 most similar facilities that have been completed by the architect have a cost per square foot ranging from $303 to $423 per square foot. The most recent numbers I have heard being tossed around in meetings for the Grace Church building, 30,000 square feet and $30 million, put the cost per square foot for the Grace Church facility at $1,000 per square foot. Is the cost per square foot on the proposed Grace Church Community Center so high because in order to fit a building of this size onto such a small piece of land, there is a need to invest in the destruction of the land first? How much of the $30 million is going to, quote, bury a gym that is more than the seniors need? This facility is not a retail store. The goal need not be to maximize frontage on Main Street. This building should be efficient and practical for the seniors and the neighbors. Doesn't it make sense economically to scale down the building to a senior center only size and rotate it so that it falls east to west, perpendicular to Main Street? This would also allow for a driveway on each side of the building to and from the back lot. Traffic can flow in on the south side and out on the north. Put the gym on the back so there's less need for digging. Trumbull's current senior center is 20,000 square feet. It was a school previously, and it has many square feet of small rooms, former classrooms or offices, I'm not sure. In my opinion, if we're building a senior center with a couple of community meeting rooms, we don't need a building 50% bigger. We need a building with the right square feet, especially more gym space. keep the size to 20,000 or maybe 25,000 square feet max, with the space properly allocated. The current senior center gym is 48 by 33, or 1,584 square feet. A typical middle school gym is 74 by 42. Adding a safety zone to all sides would bring it to 84 by 52. So 4,368 square feet. Sorry for all the numbers. So the gym would be almost 3 times the current gym size if you build a middle school gym. And that is enough for 3 pickleball courts.
I'm sorry. Are you almost?
I'm almost done.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I am almost done. It appears to me this proposed gym is larger than that, but maybe not. Without a bar scale on the models and floor plans, it's impossible to say with certainty. If the architects could please add a bar scale to their print, that would be great. All right, one more thing. Oh, 2 more little things. Build the senior center at Grace Church, and after the new Hillcrest is open, use the old Hillcrest footprint or foundation for a community and aquatics center. And last but not least, there are trees on the Grace Church property that should be saved. With a senior center footprint, the building can be set back from Main Street and include a canopied garden in front. Please hire an independent and qualified arborist to look at the trees on the property, not employees of the town with a clear conflict of interest. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. We're good? Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right. Moving on, we are going to call for approval of the December 11th, 2024 minutes. And I have a motion.
So moved. Dave Galla?
Dave Galla, and a second.
Second, Dawn Cantafio.
Don Cantafio. Any changes?
On the minute, disease, which is referring to some of the trees, is not spelled correctly.
So if anybody couldn't hear Christine, on the first page, the word disease is decease in this spelling. So we're going to correct the. You're on. There we go. Correct the spelling of disease. If everyone is okay with that. Let's see, Gia. It's under project discussion. On the first page, it looks like about the 6th line down.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Can we move for that amendment?
So moved, Dawn Cantafio.
In a second.
Second, Rich Kroll.
Thanks, Rich. You didn't catch that one, Rich. It's not like you. All those in favor of the minutes as amended? It looks like everyone. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, all set. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, I had on here the town council meeting recap. That will probably kind of get absorbed up in the next item, which is the project discussion by Tom and Rocco. First of all, thank you for the public that came out and for our committee members that were able to make it. Lots of information was shared, got some pretty good feedback. Maybe, I don't know if Kelly and Mike want to add in anything from a council perspective. And then anything else that any of the other members want to share that they got out of that meeting. Mike, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I made my points the other night in the meeting, and I think most of you guys were there. So, I mean, unless you want me to repeat it. But no, I mean, everyone kind of knows how I feel on it. I'd like to have a facility big enough for the seniors to be able to do all of their activities. Obviously, for a few reasons, I was against the gym. So, but it looks like the gym component's there. So, it's kind of how I feel right now, but not much more else to say.
All right. Any other perspective that you got from any other of your?
No, I mean, I think that the entire council got a really good view of all the public comment, and the big takeaway is seniors play basketball, right? Seniors play pickleball. They deserve to have the facilities that meet their needs, and that's pretty much what I think the takeaway was. And that the architects have been extremely responsive and listening, and the committee's been in the folks' backyard. We've all been in, that there's been a lot of really good exchange of information, so.
Yeah, my perspective, I think a lot what we got from the public, and I think some questions that Tom and Rocco would answer to some extent, but a lot of it had to do with use and hours, which a lot of it doesn't fall under our purview. It was tied kind of to the gym conversation, but I think everybody kind of took away from that that's a main area of concern and something we can continue to discuss and the town should be continuing to discuss. I know there was, and I think I got brought up tonight, I believe Chairman Massaro brought up about questions about the egress, and I think we're going to have more information from that, whether through the Traffic Commission, through meeting with the Fire Marshal, and reading through the Police Commission. I think those are going to be our experts in that field, as well as our architects, to kind of guide us in that direction, more so than any of us would probably know. But generally, I thought the input was good, and it was a long but a creative and interesting exchange. So again, thank you for the council for giving us the time. I think the plan is, and we'll talk a little bit at the end about next steps, is to be able to go back to the council in March with even more information. So other than that, if anybody else has any takeaway from sitting in a crowded room that day. Okay, so otherwise we will move on to our project discussion. It probably is going to be a recap of what we saw on Monday night, but we'll have Rocco and Tom come and share anything else they'd like to share with us, as well as that presentation. Holding our breath to make sure that comes.
Great. Thank you, Tom Arcari, principal with QA&M Architecture, 195 Scott Road, Farmington, Connecticut. Who was not able to be at the town council meeting? One?
And Matt and Tony weren't there.
Oh, sorry, Matt, Tony. Apologize. Well, we had a good meeting the other night, and we presented the changes to the design concept that we've been developing over the last few months. And tonight we have that to present, but I'll talk a little bit about that presentation and some of the comments that we received. So this is the existing site again for reference, and we can come back to this if need be. We did have a detailed site survey put together. The town did this through the Public Works Department. So we now have a very detailed assessment of the site itself. And we could use that to put a detailed site plan together. I did hear a comment this evening about having a graphic scale put on the drawings, and we can do that for all the drawings. That's a good comment. So this is the most up-to-date site plan. We've had our site civil engineer take our concepts and put a real, a dimensioned, scaled site plan together. This site plan shows the location of the buildings. It also shows the grading. It shows all the parking configurations, and I'll go through it briefly. So on the south side, let me see if there's my cursor here. Is that going to come? Yeah. So on the south side of the site, we're going to rebuild the existing curb cut that's there. And we are leaving that portion of the parking area intact. So this portion is an existing portion of the site development. We are just going to clean it up right now, repave it, and stripe it. We're going to add a new buffer to the neighbors to the south. There currently is an easement here to one of the neighbors, the neighbor to the south. There's a possibility that going forward there will be some improvements there, or an agreement between the town and that neighbor to accommodate their parking and access issues. From the south entrance drive, you can come in. You can see we've maintained the revised design. The drop-off for the senior buses and senior patrons will be at the front of the building. There will be handicap and visitor parking at the front as well. Flush access will get you to the first floor of the building where the majority of the senior functions are. This was sort of the response to feedback we got from Michelle Jacob and her team, and we think it's pretty successful. On the north side of the site, we're proposing a new curb cut. There is an existing second curb cut here. We're actually proposing to move it further to the north. That increases the distance between the two entrances and is a recommended upgrade by the traffic engineer. This would be a two-way entrance at that point and would provide access to the back or lower side of the site. That drive is 24 feet wide, and you can see the way it's, here we go. You can see the drive is 24 feet wide, and the buffer is almost as wide as the drive. It measures about 20 feet at its widest part. What I didn't point out at the meeting last night is that there's a lot of topography on the site. So the building is being built into the grade. So this is the upper level, and over here is the lower level of the building. From this point here all the way down to this point here is about a 20-foot grade change. So from here you start dipping down. However, the property line, the grades at the property, at the neighbors will stay the same. We can't change their grade. So there's a big retaining wall here, and the road dives down into that retaining wall. So one of the things I wanted to point out is that as cars are either entering that loop to go out or they're coming down, driving towards the east, their headlights of those cars are actually down below the top of that retaining wall. So there's no light spillage currently from this point about halfway down the drive all the way in and out. So cars coming out of the rear parking lot, their headlights are basically shining on a retaining wall, which is below the neighbor's property. The plan, I have another plan that shows a buffer, but the plan is to have this heavily buffered. And after hearing comments yesterday, we're probably going to recommend the fence, a stronger buffer in this location of some sort of stone wall, fence, or a combination of that and some plantings to ensure that vehicles going in and out are not causing any light pollution into their properties. So you come down to the rear of the site. There is parking, a drop-off at the lower level. There's parking, and then a revised parking area here. Entrance patio has a lower plaza and an arts and crafts plaza, and then a main entrance at the lower level. We will also use this retaining wall here to hide the generator and the transformer for the electrical service. The parking area, we've reconfigured it. So what we're showing is a smaller hardscaped parking lot. This would be pervious pavers. So this would be a fixed set of parking area. And then the rear of the site would be a lawn, and that would be overflow parking or lawn parking area. I'd also like to point out that this is a small piece of wetlands. This is the buffer line. None of our proposed improvements, demolition work is within that wetlands area. So we will meet informally with the Conservation Commission, but there's no requirement to apply as we're not disturbing any of those wetland areas. We had our site civil engineer take a long look at how the utilities will come into the site. So this will be a part of the package, but some of the things you can see here are where water and sewer might leave the building. All the storm drainage, this is a concept to storm drainage, to drain the site of stormwater. And then at the rear of the site, we would be proposing an underground detention system with infiltration into the grade below. So this exercise allows us to verify that we can put a concept together that will safely and sustainably drain the site, and will help us during the cost estimating portion of this exercise, so that we know what that infrastructure is going to look like. And then finally, we put a concept landscaping plan together. Here is the site. As I mentioned, based on comments we received last night, we're going to change and upgrade the buffer along this side of the site. We're proposing new decorative street trees along the street, a tree replanting program. We are removing a few significant trees from the site to accommodate the building. We would like to replant to replace said trees, and then a variety of different options for buffer. One of the things I wanted to point out to the committee that wasn't really recognized in prior design iterations, because of the fact that we didn't have the site graded, is that the rear parking area actually sits down into a bowl. So this is a cross section through the site. You can see on the site here it's A and B. The A side being the active adult community, and the B side being the neighborhood street. But you can see that the adjacent properties are about 8 feet higher than the parking area itself. So headlights from those cars will actually, shine into the berms, and then when we plant the tops of those, there will be a really strong buffer to the adjacent neighbors. And then Rocco can talk a little bit about the building.
I forgot to do. So, the building as a whole hasn't really changed much. Most of the work has gone into the site work over the last few weeks. One thing I was asked to point out is that the multi-purpose room does have a platform stage area, performance area in it. It hasn't left, just wasn't marked. But I'm willing to take any kind of questions that you guys might have on the plan, the layout, or comments, being as that you've seen this before and you might have some comments or.
Rocky, you said a stage?
Yeah, it's a platform. It's like a 6-inch platform, really.
What would be the use of that?
Performances for the senior centers. Yeah.
And speakers.
Yeah, presentations.
Bands?
Michelle, do you want to actually?
It's fairly typical for senior programming to have musical events at the center, usually 2 or 3 piece musicians. It could be a singer, it could be a musician. This is not the big battle of the big bands that would happen here. It's just, supporting the functions in the multi-purpose room. It's not a massive platform. It's essentially about 8 feet deep and about 16 feet wide. So comfortably holds 3 or 4 performers tops. But it gives a platform that you can speak over the crowd when the room is in a large space. In its biggest configuration. A couple things Rocco didn't point out is that a part of this concept, we have this grand stair that goes to the lower level, and we now have a cafe space at the end of the main gallery, and we've added an exterior patio over the arts and crafts space. So it's on the roof of the arts and crafts space. This allowed us to shrink the building a little bit, also create some outdoor eating space off of the cafe. But the biggest thing we've been working on is the iteration of the exercise or activity room. at the last meeting, we had a lot of discussion about the size, the configuration of the exercise room. We did push the back wall of the gymnasium to the front wall of the building, so it's in the basement, and the footprint of the building matches a middle school sized gymnasium. You can see there's 3 pickleball courts transverse in the space. That just gives you an idea what the scale of the space is. However, we have reduced the building to a 2-story building, and it's about 22 feet floor to floor. So after 3.5 feet of structure, we'll have about 18.5 to 19 feet clear under the structure in that space. So the space will be suitable for all sorts of senior recreation. We just don't have the height for CIAC competitions in this space. In the center of the space is a food pantry, which will have an entrance off of the vestibule area, but we do have an overhead door here so that deliveries can be made through there. Or in the summertime, the food pantry can use the plaza as a marketplace. And then this is the arts and crafts space, which will also have doors or access to this arts and crafts patio. I'll just continue on. Here is a bird's eye view of the building. It's very similar to what you saw last time. We're maintaining 1-story height at the front of the building, at the Main Street side of the building. It's very close in total height and scale to the adjacent structures. You can see that these are massing models of the adjacent houses and the height of that. This is what it currently looks like. And then you can see the back of the site, and this is what I was trying to point out in the site section, is that the grade actually drops here and goes flat across and then comes back up. So the parking area sits in a little bit of a bowl, making that area more secluded. You can see the 2-story entrance, the cafe above. This is the multi-function room, and this is the outdoor seating area. And then this is what the rear of the building looks like. So we're at a point where design-wise, we think we're in a good position. We continue to get feedback from the public, help that refine and inform the design. But we've put a schedule together to start doing some of our diligence. And in summary, what some of those things mean are we have the traffic study engaged and underway. They are doing their collection this week and into next week. I hope to have the traffic study by the end of the week. End of the month, I'm sorry. Thank you. We plan on going to the police or the traffic commission at their February 11th meeting. We are going to attempt to get on the planning and zoning meeting in February. I think it's 18th is that P&Z meeting. Third Wednesday. I think it's the 18th. 18th, 19th. And in between there are meetings with your group. We are also targeting a meeting with the town council on March 3rd, where we would ask for acceptance of the design. At that point, we would be coming to town council in theory with hopefully 8-24 approval from planning and zoning. We'll see how that goes. We're still doing our diligence on that, and we have some more items to get. We anticipate starting the cost estimating process in early February. The goal would be to have a cost estimate in place by the end of February. We're talking to estimators and construction managers now about getting some help with that. If I'm fortunate enough to get interest from a couple construction managers, we're trying to put 3 estimates together. That would be the goal, and then do a blended reconciled estimate. I don't know if we'll be that fortunate, but we do have in our contract 1 professional cost estimate. If I can get a construction manager to give us another estimate, I think that would be great for verification. So that we're going into the town council and the Board of Finance with a strong overall number and project budget. So those are our next steps, and if you have any questions, I'd love to take them.
Thank you. Hi, this is Kelly Malazzi. Is it fair to say that the fire marshal, when we discuss everything to do with emergency vehicles, will follow the NFPA standards for fire? Because I just looked that up. It's Fire Protection Association. Is
That's
that typical?
correct. So NFPA generally refers to the National Fire Protection Association. It's most commonly applies to the fire safety code, particularly for the building itself. The building will be brand new. It will meet NFPA 100%. It will be a fully sprinklered building. There would be no reservations from a life safety perspective on the building. We will meet with the fire marshal, talk about access to the site, front and rear of the site. Make sure that all the turning radiuses meet their emergency vehicle access. There was one good comment, excuse me, about access to the rear of the site, the potential for a secondary access. We have the physical capacity to create emergency access in 2 other locations, but that would require a partnership with neighboring properties to accommodate it. I think there's the potential that could happen. It's a benefit to the project, but we don't have any agreements in place for that. Obviously, those types of connections would be for emergency access only, for nothing other than that. The other option is to create a boulevarded entrance, which divides the entrance drive, so that if a vehicle going in has a fender bender or breaks down, there's another aisle that's still clear. We could do that. I just haven't demonstrated that yet because we didn't want to make the entrance drive wider than we needed to because we wanted to maintain a bigger buffer to the neighbors. But we do have some room to move the entrance drive a little bit to the south. There have been some comments about the entrance drive on the north, along the north property, and it abuts, directly abuts 4 or 5 properties. We really think we have to take a hard look at that buffer and make sure that it's really strong. So we have some room to move the drive. But unfortunately, we don't have the capacity, the length to shorten that drive. In an earlier iteration, we had the turn, the 90-degree turn, we had it closer to Main Street by 50 feet. But because of the grade change from the front to the back of the site, we can't do that without having a really steep entrance drive. As it is, this is about 6.5% to 7%, which is comfortable and manageable, but we don't, if I were to move it, it would be 8.5%. And I just don't think that's good or safe.
When we talk about the bowl where the grade goes down,
Yeah.
and that the parking lot will exist below kind of like sight lines, that's natural? Like that's how the land, like we're not, I'm afraid to say this out loud, but like we're not blasting, are we?
No, we are
Okay.
not. We are not blasting. We're
Okay.
working with the existing topography. You can see that in order to create the pitch away, we're removing some material, but not significant by any means.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to follow up because that egress question I know has come up, but Chairman Massaro reiterated to me today as well about kind of not being able to go in the building and circle out to come out. But Megan, or the fire marshal, I'm sure will weigh in on that. And it sounds like we will have some other opportunities, and hopefully not one to go into private sector and private neighborhoods, but that there may be other options within our own space here.
So we don't have the physical ability to do a full loop around
Right.
the building. However, we do have the physical ability to have full drive-up access to every ounce of the perimeter. And, you know, in talking with the fire marshal, she may ask that we, you know, make this patio a mountable patio. What that means is fire trucks could drive up onto the plaza if they needed to get access directly against the rear of the building. So, you know, the nice thing is that fire trucks could pull up to, they could pull up to the full perimeter basically, and provide service to the building.
Yeah, I think the question is getting in and getting and actually access to the building. So obviously those will be options to look at. Thank you.
You mentioned last night, Dave Galla. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No.
Okay. You mentioned last night or the night before about the northern entrance and exit, as well as that southern entrance, which is the curb cut on the south side there.
Yeah.
And that I believe you mentioned was a two-way.
Right
Both
now,
in and
they're
out?
both two-way curb cuts. The two existing curb cuts are two-way curb cuts. So we would try and maintain two-way access in both spots. However, we will have to go to DOT review with this. It's possible they might say that one of those curb cuts, like the south curb cut, would be entrance only, so that you don't have, you know, traffic egressing from two spots. It also gives a longer throat between that entrance and the light at 111. So it's possible that could be, you know, converted to a one-way curb cut at some point.
And then I'm going to be a little all over the place here, but maybe a question for Michelle. We talked a little bit about the stage area before, and thank you for bringing that up. Could you maybe talk to what the comparative is between what the stages that you have now and what this proposed stage might look like? And maybe what some of the uses are? Thanks.
Sure. Michelle Jacob, Director of Human Services for the town. I don't really know.
It's about half the size of the stage, so it's not a performing stage. It's just for speakers or bands, or maybe two-thirds.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we do have a really, Trumbull has a lot of arts. The seniors are very interested in art. We have a lot of performances, piano, a couple singers. We do have a drama club, but they can utilize the entire space. But it's also helpful if we have an exercise class in there to get somebody up off the ground for a visual. You can't see the person's footsteps, you know, or footwork when everyone's blocking you. So it is really helpful for everybody. Yeah.
Ron Feligno. What's the height of the current stage?
On your mic's not on.
This mic.
A foot?
Michelle, I'm sorry.
A foot?
Oh, the current stage?
No, that's.
No, your stage now is like 30 inches. Yeah.
Okay.
And about how wide is it? And how wide is it?
I don't know.
Oh, the existing one. About
Right. No.
20, 25 feet, the existing one? Because we've had Smile a While presentations with a cast of like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people in a row doing their little routines.
Right.
So will this be adequate for that?
We'll make it work. Yeah. I mean, we don't have huge productions. They're small. But they do have performances and guest speakers. It makes a difference when they're up there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem.
Tom, you said the gym is a middle school size regulation?
Footprint, yes, but it's I'd have to get you the hard dimensions, Mike.
The only reason why I ask is Kelly, I didn't want to, I probably should have elaborated more. I want the seniors to be able to play basketball. but a middle school sized basketball court is a pretty large basketball court. And traditionally, you wouldn't see senior citizens playing on a middle school sized court. It would traditionally be more like an elementary sized court. Or maybe even Tom could attest probably a half court, right? Where, you have half the gym and they play on one hoop. So the comment, I should have elaborated for anyone that wasn't here on Monday, it wasn't to remove that ability from them. It was just me saying, well, that's a pretty big gym for, a lot of up and down.
In fairness, the middle school gym typically, if you look on the stage, let me see if I can get this. So you have a high school court going longitudinally, and then transversely you tend to have like 2 elementary school courts. The seniors realistically would play on a transverse court. So if this served just senior basketball and 2 pickleball courts, the footprint could be smaller. The question is, does it make sense to expand the footprint and support a lot of other recreation type events, whether it's, dance class or indoor soccer or, recreation type activity, physical fitness programs? Does it make sense to do that? And I think that's where the conversation was coming from the Parks and Rec director, who has a lot more flexibility if the footprint is bigger.
And the last question, how many pickleball courts are in the current senior center?
Well, there's one. There currently is one, and actually part of the problem, not part of the problem, but part of the solution with the new center is flexibility. Right now, the pickleball court is your multifunction room, is essentially, this room. So having the 2 spaces provides massive amounts of flexibility. So now the pickleball court or the dance and fitness can all happen in the same space. They're set up for physical activities. In the meantime, the multifunction room can remain, and it can be set up for classroom events or activities and a lunch event all at the same time. So obviously, there was a comment this evening about the size of the building, the existing center being about 20,000 square feet. Our programming analysis for the senior center, which we vetted for years with this committee, demonstrated a need for about 25,000 square feet for the senior center, so a little bit bigger. But adding the gym, adds to the overall total flexibility of the center. So about 25, I would say about 25,000 is the senior programming, and 5,000 is the gym.
On Monday night, I asked you about the cost of Hardy Lane, and we talked about when it was on that site, 25 hard cost, 5 soft. Do you think, just looking at this footprint, are we in a similar stratosphere?
So
not holding you to numbers, but you
course.
think it's sort of comparable?
So we're seeing costs for public buildings in today's marketplace around, depending on what's in it and how many bells and whistles, between $550 and $700 a square foot. So if you use a blended rate of like $650, you're talking about 20 hard cost plus probably $1.5 million for site costs, and then maybe 5 for soft costs. So 26-ish, 27, 25. I think that's the ballpark. I'm just being open and honest. That's the ballpark. And I think that's a good budget. It's a good ballpark.
Last comment. You mentioned on Monday that you've probably done about 25 or 30 of these. Do you think you could put a portfolio together and send it to the committee so we could see some of these other buildings? And the only thing I would ask is the name of the building, the square footage, and just the town it's in. Like, we could go do the other research on our own, Google image, or, go do a site visit, but just understanding, like, for instance, maybe Glastonbury has one and that town is like Trumbull, let's say, in the comparison. So it's like, being able to feel like, wow, that's very similar to our community, and heck, it's on It's on a main road, just like what this proposal is. Anything like that, I think, would be helpful.
Yeah, so I could do that. I wouldn't do it for all 30 of the centers we worked on. Some of the centers we worked on are very small in Coventry or Ashford, but communities like Brantford is a community very similar to yours, has a center that's very similar to this. It's 2 stories, it has a gym. It's a bigger gym commitment, but and that was an addition renovation project. So I would pick 6 or 7 facilities that were similar in size to that.
That'd be perfect. Thank you.
And I will tell you that early on, from years and years and years ago, when you first came onto that project, something like that was created, and we probably have that in the archives.
You do have it.
We
It's
have
in our
it. We have
proposal
it.
package.
We could probably look at it. And the other thing I would ask just the general public too is to look on your website. There's a lot of references to a lot of similar, and maybe even if you just point out what those are, and we can go from there. But I know we've seen a lot of those many, many years ago.
We do have some cost numbers on the website too, and I understand a woman from the public did that data research, which was quite nice that she actually looked. And some of those numbers are good, but it's really hard to take any of those numbers at face value. Since 2020, the construction marketplace costs have exploded.
Yeah.
And they're almost double. So
if you could give us the date that or the year that the buildings were done, so there might be a comparison to what that is.
Ron, I know you've been waiting.
Yeah, Ron Foligno. Didn't we discuss at one point in time having a possible division, as we do in the multipurpose room down in the gym? So you could basically segment it in half?
Yep.
For half-court basketball games? I don't want to play a full-court game.
We're not showing that. That is a possible amenity. Typically in gymnasiums, they have a curtain that comes down. We have done folding doors. But the problem with a folding door is then I have to create 3 exits from each space. And because this is in the basement, we need to have 3 exits from the space. So a curtain is a better solution because I can main egress from the back of the gym.
Okay, I just thought that was a viable sort of solution to the full court basketball aspect. And you're right, Mike. I don't foresee seniors playing full court.
And, just can I piggyback on this gym conversation?
Ron, you're probably in better shape than I am, so if you can do it, God bless you.
I am over 30.
I just want to join in on this gym conversation, although I could never say the word gym again in this week, and I'd be just fine. It's not just a basketball gym. I think we're really getting stuck on constantly talking about whether it's senior basketball, whether it's recreational basketball. I know Mr. Paris spoke at, I believe, our December meeting that got a lot of attention from people of use. We may not agree on how that is used, but I think at least Mike, I'll speak for myself and what I'm understanding from a lot of community members, is to have flexibility for that space, for community use, for senior use, for during the day use while seniors are playing pickleball at 1 or 2 courts, that something else could be happening on the other side of the gym. I think the whole idea was there's a basement down there. We have the space. It doesn't cost a lot more to build it out. I'd like to stop talking about the basketball court portion of it and talk about all the other options. Even if you look at recreational programming for a Mommy and Me course or whatever, a Mommy and Me activity, anything that could happen there that just uses that kind of space. I know Rocco in the past has talked about that kind of flooring and the flexibility with that. I think we're getting so stuck on how big of a basketball game could be played in there, and I don't believe that's been our focus from the beginning. I think it kind of crept into that recently. I know there's a lot of concern about what recreation basketball will happen or not happen. The town will always have a say in that. We have a say in what's built. I think I would agree with a lot of people as far as hours and how far that gets pushed. That's me personally. That is not, to me, what we're talking about, what we're building here. What we're talking about building is flexible space that seniors can use, that hopefully community can use even during senior center hours, and that it's not just going to be a basketball court that is used full court for all kinds of things. And it goes beyond pickleball. And honestly, we talked about, that right now they tape off one pickleball court. We know the need is bigger than that. And I think this addresses it while giving us other flexibility.
Yeah, just real quick, Dave Galla. So we have spent a lot of time focusing on this one particular room, and just as the Community Facilities Building Committee, I think we're doing a job here, and I appreciate all of the effort and all of the work that has gone into creating this entire building. So with us deciding and hopefully making a good decision for the town and that use, and then allowing Michelle and others within the town to program that building, but by offering them the most amount of opportunity to do so with the most amount of flexibility, which I believe we have here, I think we're doing right by the town.
I think we're making much ado about nothing, really. Is it the markings on the floor that make it a basketball court? If that's the case, don't put the markings down, and it's another utility room.
Yeah.
At this point, I would not be opposed to that.
Yeah, it's all in how you look at it.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony Silber. Just listening to the conversation, a couple of things come to mind, for better or worse. When I think of Trumbull, I think we consistently make the ranks of the top towns in the state. Our schools are very highly rated, and yet this entire conversation is all about like shaving 5 feet off the stage. Taking a couple of feet off the gym height, the ceiling height in the gym. Making sure it's not, it's in no way available to kids if they ever wanted to play. I'm a senior citizen, right? My brother-in-law is 72, 73 years old. He plays full court basketball. I could easily play full court basketball. Right? I mean, not all seniors are people walking around with walkers. So some people are fairly fit, and we should keep that in mind. And we're really trying to, do something right for the people of the town, seniors in particular, but for the whole town. So, I think the tone of the conversation is like kind of off. We should be doing, we should be adding what we can add in this facility rather than just subtract until we have something that, in 10 years we're going to find it inadequate. And we'll have to add to it. And I just want a couple of other things. That is penny wise, pound foolish. But what I wanted to say is I've been on the P&Z for a long time, and I have seen like sincere neighbors oppose various projects. The one on Huntington Turnpike across from Priscilla Place comes to mind. The Enclave down here on Daniels Farm comes to mind. And when these things go in, it's fine. You're living next door. You have neighbors, through the woods, through 25 feet of woods from you. It's not catastrophic. And when people say, would you put a senior center next to Long Hill Village, it makes me scratch my head because, that's about the least intensity use that you can imagine, a senior center for a community facility. And so I just, there's a fear, and that fear is legitimate, but it almost never comes to pass. And so, if my mother were alive, I would have her move into Long Hill Village next to a senior center. It's just not, so it's a good neighbor, not a bad neighbor. So that's my take. Thanks.
Rich.
Rich Kroll. So, on the gymnasium, it sounds like we were always going to have some sort of rec space, right? And it seems like the design the architects have worked on are trying to make the most efficient use of the space, right? So we're got a space that's maybe bigger than it needed to be or could have been, but it doesn't look like something that's going to add tremendous cost for, the efficiency you gain. And now you have the space that you need potentially for a lot of different activities. Also, there was talk the other night about all the gymnasiums in town, but they're all in schools, right? So those can't be used during the day. So it makes sense to have some sort of facility like this that's available during the day, that's under control of the town and not the Board of Ed. And the town can control the programming. So if there's excessive programming, people have outlets to, reduce the programming or expand. I wanted to clarify one thing. When you say the structure, Tom, the 3.5 foot structure, is this like beams? So there's openings between the beams?
Yes.
So the real height is 23 feet or what have you, but
in between the beams.
If a volleyball hits a beam, you're 18 or 19
yeah, the beams
feet,
are
right?
spaced like no more than 4 feet apart. So there's a lot of beams.
Right.
Unless
And
we put
can you,
columns.
on the stage, so right now, they have a real stage, right? And I was specifically asked by somebody who currently uses the senior center specifically about the stage. Are we losing anything? And maybe it's a question for Michelle.
Can we?
Still here, are we losing something by not having a real stage, by just having a 6-foot platform that's 8 by 16?
We're doing platforms in all of our centers now, and it doesn't have to be 6 inches, it can be 18 inches. We just have to provide a ramp access to it. The current stage doesn't have ramp access to it, it's not accessible. And as far as the size goes, that's something that can be grown or changed. It's really important to note that this is a conceptual floor plan and layout. There's a lot of details that need to be layered on this, and there will be a lot of things that change and revise as it gets matured.
And that's a big, the multi-purpose room is a big space, so is it possible to have a temporary stage, something the town purchases that collapses somehow and can be brought out and,
The schools use those.
Tom, is the ramp an ADA requirement?
Okay.
Yes.
Well, settles that.
Okay, so there's alternatives to having it physically built as part of the space. Can you go back to the landscape plan? So the driveway coming in now, is 24 feet typical for those? I mean, are they typically any wider or?
You can do it wider. 24 feet is a two-way road dimension that's fairly typical. For an access drive, you could do it smaller, sometimes 22, but we felt 24 was appropriate, and at this point, we haven't made it bigger, but when we meet with staff, they may have some insight as to how it wants to be changed.
And does 24 feet leave room for like a shoulder if someone's walking while cars are coming in or out, or is it strictly going to be for vehicles?
So we don't have a sidewalk at this point, top to bottom, but we have access into the building at the front, and then you take the elevator or stairs to the lower level.
Okay, and it does look, now that we're seeing, this view in a more finalized diagram of it, right, it does look like a 90-degree turn. I guess we'll get feedback from, fire marshal if their equipment can handle that without any problem, especially if
Yeah.
there's a retaining wall, right? They're going to have
Yeah, all
kind
of
of
this will have to
limitations
meet
on
the
how the
auto
apparatus
turn.
can be brought in and out and how much apparatus.
That's correct.
So it does look a little bit like a pinch point to me from this view. On the landscaping and the trees, I know there's all sorts of discussion on the trees, and there's been the request to do more tree studies, but it looks like if, there's a lot of things that have to happen before this could get approved, right? And the final vote goes to the town, whether or not the town wants whatever the final concept is that comes up. But it looks like, from this diagram, this entire site is going to be touched and ripped up to build this thing. So all trees are going to go regardless of their condition, I think.
Most of the center of the site, yeah.
And I think most of the trees of concern are they there? Are they more towards the side?
They're right under the building.
Right. Okay.
I'm just being open and transparent about it. And
Right.
Well, I'm not hiding it. Unfortunately, to develop the site this way, we need to remove those trees. Where those trees are located, there's really no real way to develop a building of this scale without taking them.
Right. You're going to rip up the existing parking lot. The whole site's going to be torn up from what I can see. So I just don't think we should probably spend much more time or certainly money evaluating trees. Now the replacement trees, I think the trees in front, I like the idea of trees in the parking lot. I would be a little more apprehensive to more trees, only because trees cause future maintenance, right? Trees grow, trees have roots, trees start causing damage to things.
That'll
Tree-
be a town staff
Right.
issue.
There'll
They'll
be
give us
deciduous
feedback.
trees are going to drop leaves. That becomes a maintenance thing. So I'd almost prefer, if it was me building this, I wouldn't have any trees in the back parking lot. As much as I
Or
like trees.
islands, right? No trees or islands. The town has its planning and zoning requirements that requires a certain amount of trees, certain amount of islands after so many parking spots. So all of that, again, this is conceptual a little bit in nature. This isn't by any means a final construction design. And if you really started to dig into this and you had expertise, you would be looking at all the different plant types and the phylum, and is that what we really want here? The town's going to have input on that as well.
Okay. Let's see. What else do I have? The paver parking lot. So I'm always, Mr. Maintenance, long-term, short-term maintenance costs, all that sort of thing. So we have, I think, some of the semi-permeable pavers right now in Long Hill, I guess by Giovanni's, that, what do they call that, Long Hill Park or something? Right, but we don't have any, those have only been there for a couple of years. I think some were put in last year, some a few years before that. Do you know, like, what the cost difference is between that and asphalt is? Just, generally, is it twice the cost? Is it 3 times the cost?
I don't have
The initial
that
install?
It's the install number and the material number. I don't have that cost, but permeable pavers is a significantly more sustainable approach. And our thought is we'd rather see the storm drainage infiltrating as opposed to trying to run it, collect it, discharge it. So there's a cost, but I don't think it's significant on the development.
And is there any concern with, like frost heave, that kind of thing happening with pavers? Like, you have a patio, that can happen over the years, right?
Actually,
Depending how well it's
pavers-
built and how well it's done.
Pavers
to
are
begin with.
easier to repair than the asphalt is. And you can repair it in kind, but they move just like asphalt moves. And there is some concern about, the permeable pavers have to be maintained, because if you get a lot of residue in between the pavers, then they don't infiltrate. So there's a maintenance program that's required with them. So it's not as clean and simple as a paved parking lot from a maintenance perspective, but George Estrada's going to have to deal with that.
I was going to say, I don't see George in the room, so.
That's a way in.
What's up, George?
And, to that note, have some questions, but another meeting that Tom didn't mention is an informal meeting with all of those kind of department heads. They'll be weighing in on the kind of questions you're having now, and that'll happen. He's meeting with the fire marshal on January 29th, hoping to add another meeting with a lot of those people who will probably be asking the same questions that you are.
Okay. Only one more again on the pavers. So a lot of times you have to be careful with any sort of concrete products, right? When you put salt down or de-icing. So is that something the town's going to have to be more conscious of, what they put down on that versus a paved parking lot?
Yep.
And I guess George would be the man to
Questions, yeah.
ask about that. I think I've exhausted all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Tony?
Thanks, Lori. Tony Silber. One thing that I've learned from P&Z is that land stops sound. So just a thought that you maybe put berms up along the retaining wall. And I don't know how high they would be or anything like that, or if it's feasible, but it really reduces noise.
Okay, that's something to consider.
Lydia.
Last comment about the gym, I promise. So
We believe you, Mike.
my mindset is if you build it, they will come, right? So that's sort of where I was going with that. When we were in the November meeting, we spoke with Tom, we spoke with the end users. They were very comfortable on scaling it back. And then we added it going into the December meeting. So I think that's why it's like a fresh wound and why it's a newer topic, because we were comfortable removing it. Now we're putting it back in. So I think that's why the gym combo is still lingering. The only thing I would say from a P&Z standpoint and the enclave is it's easy to say that when you don't live there. So I live off of Daniels Farm in Strobel, and if they put this type of facility that would affect my everyday life, maybe I would be sitting on that side, not sitting on this side. So my feeling with the gym is I also don't believe the neighbors should have full control of what goes there. We bought it. I think it's a perfect spot for a senior center, and I want to see the senior center go through. I really do. I was against Hardy Lane. I like this spot. If I could design the building, maybe I would design it differently. I guess my mindset looking at this building would be putting a gym and putting an aquatic center and finding another piece of property. I know we're too far, probably late in the game for that, right? We're probably moving forward with this model going towards a referendum, but I just have a different vision of the gym and aquatics component. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. It's just, but I have to voice my opinions and my beliefs on it. But that's all. But I am cognizant of the neighbors, because I know the larger, the more opportunity, the more that gets brought in. So that's my end comment.
And agreed, but I think we need some perspective here. We are not building it back to the concepts that have been before. This is not a gym recreation center. This is not an aquatic center. I know we've spoken about this. I think down the road it'd be a wonderful thing for Trumbull to have. It's not going to happen here. But I think being short-sighted on making a very small exercise activity room is a whole different conversation than calling this a recreational gym space. And I think we're trying to find the compromise. All of this is about compromise and consensus. I'm so glad, Tony, for what you said. I think this could be the best neighbors that this neighborhood could hopefully have if we do this right. I really appreciate Tom and Rocco listening to comments that neighbors have said. I appreciate the people who have said it with clarity and with grace. And we are not listening to that by adding a little more to this gym space. And I think I really want to clarify that. I believe everybody here, their intention is not creating the kind of space you're talking about. I know that has been tossed around for a long time. I know there's a lot of people we don't want to say gym. People don't want to say aquatics, because that's been an issue for a while and should be for a lot of people. That to me is a different conversation than what we're having. I want to keep this in perspective. I want and hope that the neighbors understand that there's been compromises, consensus, that we will continue to listen. I really appreciate the steps that the architects have made with the input from the committee, but mostly from the input from the public. And I would like to kind of put this gym to rest. I know what you're saying. If you build it, there are controls for that, and the town has a responsibility to do that, to continue to be the good neighbor that Tony spoke of. And I'll be in line to agree with that in a heartbeat. So I think we've given Tom and Rocco enough information to move on, unless anybody else has something other than some of the things we brought up tonight. Dawn.
Thank you. I am going to say that I have talked to other people who are very much in favor of this. The gym size, the concept, some of the seniors have approached me, and they're very happy with the concept and design. Outside neighbors in the area are also happy with this, and having a community center or senior center. It's not a community center, a senior center with community facilities for different people, but they don't want to come forward. They feel a little inhibited to say something, but they have approached me and are very happy with this. And I live on Tate Road, which is at the end of Churchill and Daniels Farm, and there has been a lot of building, as Tony knows, planning and zoning, Starbucks and the Enclave, and you're just going to have to plan a little bit better your time leaving, coming home, things like that. But it's not as catastrophic as things have been portrayed sometimes. So just have faith that it's not going to be so bad, and we got to work with things. So I just wanted to give a shout out to people who have approached me and said that they're very happy, neighbors in the area, of this coming in.
Great. We got it. Go ahead, Tony.
Thank you for that. Yeah, just to the enclave. I was on the Christmas house tour a month or so ago, and one of the houses was somebody on Ward Place, and he said when the enclave was getting built, it was, with the blasting, it was really rough, but he said now it's fine. So that's it.
And I was on council in the enclave, and I was door to door with those people every day, and it has been okay. One of the neighbors said it's like a child being born. You have 9 months of a struggle, and then it's fine. So.
Until adulthood. Go ahead, Rich.
So along the same lines of Dawn, right, any opportunity I have, right, when I'm talking to somebody in town, I say I'm on the facility building committee for community/senior center. Do you have any feedback, any comments? A lot of people haven't even, don't even know what's going on. But those that do, a lot of them did not like it on South Edgewood. They did not like it on Hardy Lane. And they do like the idea of this location and, the idea of having a new senior center. So, none of them show up here, but I've also gotten a lot of positive feedback. So, I have to take that into consideration too, as well as, when our neighbors and other people from the public give, their feedback.
And, again, shout out to the neighbors. We've all sat in your place for different reasons. And when you feel passionate about something, you should. I agree about being good neighbors. It is a good segue. And as far as getting other public feedback, and I haven't really talked to Tom and Rocco about this, I'm going to spring it on you. But I know when we were talking about Hardy Lane, we did have a meeting at the senior center and kind of had a public opportunity to ask questions and that. I'm going to put you on the spot to say that we could do something about, again, with this particular location. So we could be thinking about setting something up for that where there can be more of a Q&A back and forth, and the opportunity lends itself at these meetings. So you're shaking your head. I'm taking it as a yes.
Yeah, I'm going to hire Richard White to help negotiate the extension of my contract.
He knows it now, so you're good. You're good to go. All right, I think we can wrap this up unless anybody else has that. Thank you all for all your input. And, Christine, I'm sorry. Get the person on the phone.
Super quick. I'm not really adding anything new, but for the record, I did want to echo some of what Tony and Lori, what you both had said about being good neighbors. And just my own personal anecdote, I absolutely have plans and eyes on moving to Long Hill Village in the future. I'm 54 years old, so, the future is coming quickly, more quickly than I'd like. And if this asset and this building and this facility were next door, I would be greatly appreciative. And I think the only other thing I would add about, just again, in my own personal anecdote about like Park and Rec potentially running programming in a gymnasium after senior center hours. My daughter participates in Park and Rec basketball right now. And, the number of cars that's driving to a location where she goes to practice at like 6 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night is really just a handful, right? Like I'm dropping her off and I'm picking her up. I'm not staying, right? Maybe with the younger kids basketball, parents hover, which I used to do when my kids were younger, but now she's 12 and I just drop her off. Like it's not like, and we're going to Frenchtown school, right? But it's not an enormous, there's not like 45 cars all descending upon at one time. It's a really small number of manageable amount of traffic for the Parks and Rec basketball program. Just, again, just a personal anecdote.
Thanks, Christine. Feel better.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I think we wrap this agenda item up. Good? Good. All right. Thank you all. Tom, Rocco, anything else you need from us at this point? No. As far as next steps, we've pretty much discussed them. I think people jotted down dates. If you need any dates in particular, there's nothing until our next meeting that anybody should have to show up for, but any of those other dates that you need clarification on that you want to put on your calendar, I can send out. And then our final order of business is to approve an invoice. I'm going to need the glasses for this, and it is invoice number 16726 in the amount of $16,113.06. It is for, I believe most of it is through Concept and Threshold Design and some for travel.
I make a
Anybody?
motion to, Kelly Malazzi, I make a motion to approve the invoice as Lori just read it.
Dave Gala, second.
Thank you. Any questions about that? No? All those in favor? Great, that's unanimous, I believe. Christine's a yes, okay. And anybody who would like to call for an adjournment? Oh, wait, Tom has
go
one
ahead,
more thing,
Tom.
sorry.
In the projected time frame, I don't know if we've ever had a vote from this committee accepting the plan, moving forward, or any last comments. Might want to work that into the time frame prior to us, so that this committee has essentially approved it or voted to approve it before sending it to council for approval.
So I was going to put that on our February 12th agenda.
Okay.
Is that right? Make sense?
Yep,
Okay.
sounds good.
Good? All right, everybody good with that?
Motion to adjourn.
There we go. All those in favor? Big yes. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Christine.